Hello everyone, I'm here today to do another video for my Read Around the World challenge, and this time I'm going to talk about South America, and I have divided South America in two parts because it's quite a big place. So this video is going to be about countries in the north of South America. So that will be Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Surinam, Ecuador, Peru and Brazil. And then next month I will do another video for the other countries in South America. But yeah, let's start with Colombia. So I have read a few books from Colombia. I think the ones that are shouting at me at the moment is Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I have read a few of his books, some of them for school, some of them not for school. But yeah, the classic is Cien años de soledad. I think it's not the best one to start with, especially if you're not used to magical realism, because it's very confusing at times. But yeah, the writing is quite good, and I think it's a classic for a reason. Another one that I would like to shout out is Fiebre by Juli, Delgado, Lopera, which is about a non-binary person from Colombia that has moved into the US, and the transition is written in Spanglish. So maybe if you don't speak Spanish, it will be difficult for you to read the book, but if you do understand a little bit, or you're willing to put the effort into looking into things, I think this one is it's an interesting concept. I've never seen anything similar done anywhere. So yeah, if you're interested, check that out, because it is an interesting way to tell a story, and it's also very short. Then for Venezuela, I have read It Will Be Night in Caracas by Karina Sainz Borgo, and I read this one this month for this project, and this is about a woman in Venezuela that, due to the political unrest after the dictatorship, she is struggling to live like everybody else. Everything is rationed, food is not enough for everybody, and she finds this opportunity to impersonate someone and move to Spain, and it's like the process of her doing that. I think I learned a little bit more in depth about how exactly Venezuela was affected by this political unrest, and the situation, how bad the situation is there, because I knew it was bad. I knew that a lot of people were dying of hunger and a lot of people were trying to flee, but this just makes it a lot more human and a lot more real. However, the storyline about moving to Spain, I didn't care about that much. So yeah, it was, there are some good things and bad things, I guess. Then for Guyana, I read How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Rodney. I read this a few months ago for Invisible Cities. And actually this book is not about Guyana, it's about how Europe underdeveloped Africa. It's from the 80s, so it's a little bit outdated, but yeah, it basically goes through the ways in which Europe has stopped development in Africa, and how their policies are affecting African people in a negative way, and how this concept that Europe should look after Africa because of the colonizing past is very patronizing and not beneficial for Africans. So it was interesting. It was very dry. It was a bit outdated, but it was the facts were interesting, but yeah, nothing to do with Guyana. So if you have any good recommendations for Guyana books, let me know, because I would love to know those. Then the next one is from Surinam, and I read How Duur Was the Suiker by Cynthia McLeod, and I read this in Dutch. Surinam is a former Dutch colony, so there is a lot of connections with that. And this book was about a white family that moves to Surinam and has a sugar plantation. And I don't remember much of it. I don't think it's particularly impactful, partly also because my Dutch is not my best language, but also because the book itself was not that impactful. I would love to know if you have any recommendations for Suriname as well, because I would like to know more about the culture of Suriname, not the colonizer's perspective. So yeah. Then for Ecuador, this one I also read this month, is Sé que vienen a matarme by Alicia Yánez Cossío, and this one is set in the 1800s, and is based on real history, about Gabriel Garcia Moreno, which was a former dictator of the time, and how he came to be in Ecuador in the first place, and how he became a dictator, and how he fell from power. I appreciated that this book was set in the 1800s in that part of the world, because I haven't read much from that time and that place, but also you could see that the author had done a lot of research into this book, and it showed in not a good way, in an info-dumpy way. So yeah, that was a little bit disappointed in that sense, and the fact that she did it that way also meant that we didn't go into the characters' minds so much. It was more of a detached way of writing, so I didn't care too much about the characters because I didn't have that connection, and yeah, it was just a little bit dense and difficult to get through. I did learn things, but yeah, it was not the best storytelling I've seen. Then the next country I have in my list is Peru, and I have read a couple of books from Peru. The first one I want to talk about is Nueve by Gabriela Weiner, or 9 Months, and I read this last year for the Invisible Cities project, and this it just hit me in the right time for where I was in my life, but I think overall it's also a very good book in general. It's not necessarily very Peruvian, but it's about this woman. Basically the author is kind of an autobiography, memoir kind of thing, and she talks about when she was pregnant with her child, and there's a prologue, I think it was, where she explains, like many years later, where her child is now, and there is aspects of sexuality and gender involved in that I really enjoy as well. But also she goes through each moon of her pregnancy, so each month of her pregnancy, and she talks about the good things and the bad things in a very humorous and very honest way, which I really appreciated, because I was going through pregnancy as I was reading this book, and I could connect with it so much. I thought it was so well done. And there is also other aspects of her life, abuse and things like that. And also she moved from Peru to Spain, so that changed and how it affected her. So there's more elements than just pregnancy, but I particularly connected with that element because I was going through it as well. But yeah, I think it's a very well worth book. This book is a really good place to be. But yeah, the only thing that I can say is not particularly rooted in Peru. Another book that I read from Peru a while ago, or sort of from Peru, is Everyone Knows You Go Home by Natalia Sylvester, and this is more of a diaspora story from the US. I remember I really enjoyed it when I was reading it, but it didn't have a lasting effect on me. But if you are looking for something a little bit less heavy, I mean, it's not that it's not heavy because it's about immigration and stuff, but it does feel less deep. So if you're looking for something to give you a break, this might be a good one. And then the other one that I wanted to talk about is the Inca Garcilaso de la Vega book, because this is kind of a classical one. Garcilaso de la Vega is a very famous, is considered sort of Spanish, sort of Peruvian author. He was the son of an Incan woman and a Spanish person, and he was born around the time when colonization happened, so 1600s, and he writes about his observations. I think he did have a lot more connection with the culture of his mother, so the Incan traditions, and he does go through some of those things in this book. And it's interesting to me because it's not retrospectively talking about those issues of colonization, is the colonization as it happened and in the moment. And I think that's a perspective that I found very interesting. So yeah. The last country in this list is Brazil, and I have a few books also from Brazil. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is Day Tripper by Fabio Moon and Gabriela Weiner, and this is a graphic novel, sort of like in different chapters, and it's basically each chapter or each like individual volume of this comic or this graphic novel is about the life of this man, and he always dies at the end basically. So it's kind of his life and all the moments in which he could have died, and what would have happened if he died. So it's kind of a trip, but it was very interesting. I read this with my book club and we had lots of things to talk about, so that's always a good sign. Another thing that I read from Brazil was An Apprenticeship or the Book of Pleasures by Clarice Lispector. I know that Clarice Lispector is very well regarded literally. I didn't like this book so I guess this is a warning from me. Like, I read this book for the BookTube prize and I really didn't like it at all. It was about, I guess, the love story of this man and this woman, but it felt so pretentious and it felt so misogynistic, and I didn't like it. So I don't know if I will ever try any other Clarice Lispector, but let me know if you think it's worth. But I mean, I didn't like how pretentious it felt. So those are my opinions on Clarice Lispector. And then of course I've also read Paulo Coelho. And Paulo Coelho is one of those authors that it feels very deep and very smart when you are a teenager, and then you grow up and it loses that power. I'm glad I read it when I read it because I appreciated some of the things it said and all the cheesy stuff, but I have no interest in reading Paulo Coelho now. So I guess not a very positive view on Brazilian authors. If you have any recommendations, let me know. But yeah, those were all of the books that I wanted to talk about the north countries of South America. The second part of South America is coming to you soon. But yeah, again, let me know if you have recommendations of any of these books. And if you have read any of these books and you have same opinions as me or different opinions as me, let me know as well. And until next video, bye!